Hi, I'm Monika Stout with Yummy Arts, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a wedding cake. We're going to do 3 tiers. We're going to add some flowers, edible flowers, and some Ruffles and sparkling sugar. It's going to be gorgeous. So let's start with our bottom tier. This is our bottom tier, and this has already been covered in fondant, and I'm sure you all know how to do that, and if you don't, go to the Yummy Arts page and there's going to be places where you can learn how to cover a cake in fondant. So we're going to start with our fondant covered cake, and we're working in a nice kind of a sky blue. So that's the color of the fondant I put underneath, and so I've got more sky blue, and we're going to work on making ruffles. And we are going to do vertical ruffles today. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to start with some fondant that has Tylose powder added to it. Now Tylose powder is a powder that you add to the fondant, and it gives the fondant structure. And because we're doing ruffles and we want them to stand up a little bit, we're going to add the Tylose powder so that the ruffles stand up. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to roll out my fondant like this, and I'm not being exact because ruffles aren't always exact. And I'm going to cut a straight edge on one side, and then I'm going to cut strips. And I want the strips to be just under 1 inch wide. And again, I'm not measuring it, I'm completely eyeballing. And so I've got 2 strips like this, about 1 inch wide. And now I'm going to add my ruffle part. So I'm taking my pad, and I'm taking my ball tool, and I'm going to put a little cornstarch on my ball tool because I don't want it to stick. And I'm just going to ruffle my edges, and I'm doing that by pressing down on the ball tool and moving it around, and that's thinning out and ruffling my edges. So you can see, and I'm not being exact, but I just want it to give a little bit of a ruffle on that edge, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to ruffle this edge. So it's going to slide around. I'm going to keep that on there. And so I'm going to ruffle that edge like that. So I've got a strip that has 2 sides ruffled. Now you can see the ruffles actually lift up. So I want to make sure that I'm going to go to the back of that. So since the ruffles are lifting this way, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I'm going to add a thin strip of water right down the center. So I've got my water down the center, I've got my ruffles facing this way. Now I'm going to slowly bend this in half, very gently, just like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruffle over here, and I'm going to line it up right on the bottom of the cake, and I'm going to use a tool to kind of gently push my ruffle, attach it right there, and then I'm going to close that up again like this. So I have my ruffle. I'm going to take scissors, and I'm just going to, right across the top of the cake, snip my ruffle. So there you have our first vertical ruffle. You can see just like that. Okay, and you can shape it, close it up a little bit because you don't want to see that gap. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our second strip, going to put a little cornstarch on it. We're going to ruffle our edges like this all the way up. We're going to flip it over, do the same thing on the other side, ruffle up our edges. We're just pushing down, giving a little pressure, moving it around, and that's going to end up ruffling it just naturally. And you can practice this. This takes a little bit of practice sometimes to get it to give it that nice ruffle edge.